Hello, this is chapter 2, video number 1. In this chapter, we are going to talk about how do we display our data? How do we take the results of our survey or our experiment and how do we convey those results? And honestly, charts, graphs, visual representations are typically the best way to go about this. It's quick and easy to figure out some major trends in the data. So today we're going to talk about how we can organize qualitative data. How can we take data that is qualitative in nature and display it? Now, qualitative, don't forget, qualitative or categorical. This data separates things into categories or descriptions, etc. Things that can't really be measured. So things like eye color, what type of car you drive, what emotion you're feeling at a certain time. That is our qualitative variables. And this is in stark contrast to quantitative, which quantitative that is either counted or measured. So we're going to focus on qualitative data today. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some graphs and charts of how we can display qualitative. Well, a good first place to start is simply a frequency chart. And a frequency chart essentially is a chart of the responses. In this survey, I asked a group of 20 people what their favorite colors were. And so 2 people said red, 7 people said green, 5 said blue, and then finally 3 said pink and 3 said yellow. And this is a good first step to displaying data, and that is just a frequency chart. How many fall under each category? And notice this is qualitative because we are just asking what is your favorite color. We can't measure that. It's just an answer. Now, we could turn this into a relative frequency chart. And whenever I see the word relative, the very first thing that I think of is percentages. We want to figure out, okay, well, what percent of people like these colors? So if I'm trying to turn this into a relative frequency chart, well, 2 people out of 20, so 2 out of 20 people said that they like red the best. And if I divide that, I end up with 0.1. 2 over 20 is 0.1. Now, if you recall from previous math courses, if you move this decimal place over 2 times, 1, 2, 0.1 is the exact same thing as 10%. And we could do this with all of them. So for green, I have 7 out of 20. If you divide those, you should end up with 0.35, which is the same as 35%. All right, I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys to do these next 3. You're going to go ahead and answer a question, and then I will go ahead and give you the answers. So go ahead and do these 3. All right, blue. Blue should have been 5 out of 20, and if you divide those out, 5 out of 20 is 1/4. That's 0.25, which is 25%. Pink was 3 out of 20. That ends up being 0.15, which is 15%. And then finally, I don't know why I'm typing this still, but this is the exact same thing. This is 15%. Now, one thing that you guys should do in My Math Lab before you press submit is you should double check to make sure that these all add up to 100%. All of yours should be accounted for. And if I do this 10 plus 35, that's 45. This is 70, 85, and 100. So those do all add up. So these are frequency charts. It's just a list. If it's a regular frequency chart, it's just the count. Relative, we have the percentages. All right, bar charts. Let's take a look. Bar charts. This one is an example of a vertical bar chart. It says cheerleading is actually one of the safer school sports. And notice these are categories. We can't measure boys basketball or measure boys soccer. This is a qualitative variable, and we are simply counting how many concussions occur in each of those. So we essentially took this, probably started off as a frequency chart that looked like this with a list of how many concussions, and then we just turned this into a bar chart. Now there is kind of a fancy word, a Pareto charts. This is when it goes in descending order. So technically this would also be considered a Pareto chart because it goes in descending order and it looks very, very pretty. It's not just a random bar chart that's football's down here and lacrosse is up here and it's all over the place. Pareto, this is just a fancy way of saying that it is a bar chart in order. All right. So this is an example of a bar chart. This one's with a vertical axis. You could also do a bar chart with percentages. I mean, I guess you could call it a relative bar chart. But this is talking about what is the percentage of movies that are a certain genre. And in this case, it is romantic comedies. So we calculated the year. We calculated what year it was, and then we calculated what percentage of the movies that year were romantic comedies. And here we go. This is just a count of the romantic comedies, what percentage it is. And there you go. So this is another example of a bar chart. And last type that we're going to talk about is a pie chart. If I'm looking at a pie chart, here we go. One thing that you need to be very, very careful of with pie charts is that all of these should account for 100% of whatever category you are talking about. So this one is talking about a Senate campaign and how much they are spending. Well, looking at this, it will say here's how much they are spending in each of these. And if you were to add up these percentages, 58% of all of their campaign money went towards advertising. 20% went towards consulting. 1% went towards fundraising costs, events, and catering. Almost $92,000. That's a lot. So these should all add up to 100% if this is a good pie chart. So real quick reminders. We're talking about qualitative data here. All right, this is not calculated or counted or measured or anything. We're just different categories. And then we can do a frequency distribution, relative frequency distribution. Remember that relative just means that you're calculating a percent. And then finally, bar graphs and pie charts.